I'm hyped for this player. It's a guy that I've really been rising on as the offseason has progressed. I've actually started to avoid taking the risk on A.J. Green entirely and just scooping up Tyler Boyd around later in the 7th round. Boyd is coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was a wide receiver 18 last year with Andy Dalton in the Ryan Finley experiment in Cincinnati. He was a wide receiver 17 the year before that, and I think he should be near that range again. Right now, he's going as the wide receiver 31, and I have him around wide receiver 24 in my rankings. He is a great option for where he's going in drafts. He's not an upside play like a boom-bust guy, kind of like a Hollywood Brown, who I also like, but he's a great stability play with a splash of upside, kind of like you're talking about with Julian Edelman. You know, maybe you get DK Metcalf, who's very boom-bust, who could totally explode, but the volume could also be limited. Maybe an A.J. Brown, right? You can hedge against that with a Julian Edelman or a Tyler Boyd. What we've seen from Boyd is he's a reliable slot receiver who's put up much better numbers when there's actually a perimeter receiver like A.J. Green operating as the alpha number one. A lot of people saw Green, and I fell right into this trap as well. You see A.J. Green coming back, and you see that as a bad thing for Boyd. It's actually been a major plus based on what we've seen when Green was on the field in 2018. In the 9 games that Green played in that season, Boyd averaged 8 targets, 80 yards, and a touchdown every other game. Without Green, Boyd averaged 6.8 targets, 62 yards, and 0.29 touchdowns per game. So a touchdown every 3 games. So Boyd was literally better and more efficient from a volume standpoint and a yardage standpoint with a healthy A.J. Green on the field. I think we can agree that Joe Burrow should be an upgrade over Andy Dalton. Maybe not right away, just with this, the weird COVID season, lack of preparation. But, I mean, Burrow had that playbook before he was even drafted and has been studying. I'm expecting big things from Burrow. And that's kind of already baked into that ADP at wide receiver 31 with Boyd. Now, one of the biggest concerns in Cincinnati is the offensive line. But Jonah Williams, the Bengals' 11th overall pick out of Alabama, just in the 2019 draft, he's back now from a shoulder injury since he went out and signed a veteran free agent right guard in Xavier Su'a-Filo. He'll be good for pass pro.
That pronunciation was A1, Steph. I would have given up on that name. Did you have to
I
Google
probably
translate that definition?
Hey, the trick is just to sound like you're 100% confident with whatever you roll with.
Exactly.
But from an offensive line that was 26th in run blocking and 20th in pass blocking, I do expect that to improve. Maybe not a ton, but improvement nonetheless. John Ross is supposed to be back healthy. They drafted T. Higgins to be their heir apparent to A.J. Green. And a lot of people expect big things from Joe Mixon this year. And the Bengals did upgrade their defense in some places as well, but this should still be a team playing from behind quite often. And what I love about this Boyd pick is the upside combined with the safety. So think about it in kind of 2 different ways. If Joe Burrow and A.J. Green and John Ross are healthy, Boyd will be heavily relied upon still in this offense. He'll be a pivotal piece of this offense. And worst case scenario, let's say there's plenty of garbage time. A.J. Green and John Ross can't stay on the field. And then you get Boyd from last year when he got 150 targets with Ryan Finley and Andy Dalton there. So I've really come around on Boyd. I love stacking up on running back early this year and grabbing all the receiver value left in the mid-rounds. And Tyler Boyd is just one of those guys in that tier. He's kind of moved to the top of the Michael Gallup, Jarvis Landry type of range for me. It's still going to be somewhat dependent on roster construction, but I like Tyler Boyd a lot this year as a safe wide receiver 2 or flex option.
Yeah, Steph, I like that take. Like Zach Taylor coming out of that Sean McVay offense, that Sean McVay coaching tree from LA. I expect Zach Taylor to be able to get it done. So with him, with Joe Burrow, with a better O-line, with all these weapons at wide receiver, and Joe Mixon at running back, like you said, I'm excited to see this Bengals offense this year. And with this receiving core, this is a weird analogy, but if A.J. Green is Mr. Incredible, Tyler Boyd is Frozone. He's never going to be in the spotlight. He's probably better if he's alongside of Mr. Incredible. So when I look at this receiving core, that's how it's made up. And I think Boyd on his own doesn't quite have the upside to get it done. I don't see him having potential to be a wide receiver 1, where A.J. Green, when he hits his max potential, could be a top 5 receiver in fantasy. So it's a weird, Mr. Incredible Frozone situation. I guess you got John Ross's dash as well. But A.J. Green right now, he's going as ADP wide receiver 28. And when he's been healthy, you said this before on the pod, when AJ Green is healthy, he is productive for fantasy. Here are his fantasy finishes.
Yep.
In 2013, wide receiver 4. 2014, wide receiver 16 in points per game. He only played 13 games. 2015, wide receiver 8. 2016, wide receiver 5 in points per game. He only played 10 games. 2017, wide receiver 10. 2018, only played 9 games, but he was a top 16 wide receiver in points per game. So literally every season he's playing, when he's healthy, he, like, worst case scenario, he's a high-end wide receiver 2, and right now he's going as a wide receiver 3. So A.J. Green is one of those guys where if you want to take a gamble on an upside play, go with A.J. Green in the 6th or 7th round of your draft, and if he stays healthy, you're going to see the return. Where with Tyler Boyd, I see it very differently. Like you said, he can produce, honestly, with or without A.J. Green, but Boyd, I just see him as like a stable wide receiver 2 at best. And who knows what's going to happen in this offensive.
Relative to his ADP, though, that's pretty solid. I mean,
that's great. No, yeah, it's great. I'm fine. I'm happy to take both. Like, I'm in on both guys this year. I find myself drafting them in plenty of mocks. And honestly, I don't mind John Ross as a flyer late either. Yep. He's the wide receiver 82 right now, which is basically free. And in the 8 games he played last season, he averaged 7 targets a game. And with how valuable his targets could be down the field with all those air yards, I think John Ross could be a deep shot flex for us at some point this year. Like, if you listen to the pod throughout the season, John Ross's name probably will come up as a deep shot of the week, especially if Joe Burrow succeeds early. So I see Higgins and Ross kind of splitting the wide receiver 3 role, but it should be Ross early on, and maybe Higgins gets more involved later on in the season. But look, I'm willing to take a shot on a lot of these Bengals wide receivers. And Steph, I know you are all in on Joe Burrow in the last round. So that just speaks volumes to what this offense could do in 2020.